I can't know that because what I did at the time I did it, I took off for New Zealand and I said, I have to do something, or this year, because of my experience, will just disappear in memory.
And okay, before this, I'll ask you a few more New Zealand questions. While you were doing this, what were you also doing in New Zealand? Did you have like an agenda that, oh, you'll have like, you'll paint all days, you'll write all days, or it was just this? That's it.
I had a lot of those, but the only job I had was to do one card a day. One, that's it. I did one of these a day, and I took something from my experience and I recorded. There were days I did write. I mean, I have a memoir that goes with the art, but it's very hard to get a book published.
So we'll make this conversation just as real in ourselves and yourself it can be.
Okay,
Welcome to the podcast.
thank you.
Finally, after a lot of to and fro, a lot of attempts, you traveling the world, we finally made this possible. You're back now.
Okay, so let's just start off by saying I was born in New Jersey. I'm from New Jersey. We talk over each other. I try not to, but you don't have to stop if I say, because otherwise you'll never get a chance. So anyway, sorry, I interrupted you. I interrupted you in when I travel the world, that's what I say, because a lot of people don't have this habit. I say, I'm from New Jersey. I have no social graces.
Amazing. But okay, first, you say, let's get to know you first.
Okay. So, I've been an artist all my life, but it wasn't until I reached my 50s that it seemed like the world would agree. I had advice up until then, that I should get a real job, that I should stop being self-indulgent, being the
You were telling me about New Jersey and then you lost that part.
well, yeah, I had a bunch of real jobs, but I nothing I stuck with for very long, but I had semi-real jobs. So some of my jobs, for a while I sold real estate. For a while I worked in for the government for about 3 years. That's as long as I lasted. And then I did jobs that were halfway between, like I was in a theater company that did touring. I ran a cabaret in Seattle, which was performing and the arts. Um, I taught. I went to grad school to become a teacher of theater arts, and so I taught that for a while. Um, and then I just, I and then I taught English as a second language for a long time in Santa Monica College. That's how come I have a pension. So I did all these things to cobble together a life that I could support myself with so that I could do the arts. And so when I was 59, I had been
59. So you all these real jobs had brought you to 59.
yes, well, yeah, where I could retire. I could retire early on a half pension. Now, um, I had some success then as a artist, as a filmmaker. I made some films. As a writer, I'd won some awards and some grants. I had a very modest, but I felt like my work was really always on the maybe shelf. So at 59, I put everything in. I had a 3 or 4 really um, not awful things, but a series of just heartbreaking things. I had my job was known. I lost this house that I was living in, this beautiful little house, to Airbnb. I had a friendship end that felt like a death. My dog died. I was at loose ends. I didn't want to look for another house in LA. I just said, I'm leaving. So at 59, I started here putting everything in storage. And
At 59, sometimes even in my own wildest dreams, and I think after my mom's passing, I've thought about this. I think once a day, every time. I'm sure it crosses my mind every time, even on a good day, even on a bad day. And I feel like I wish I just sometimes I feel like I just pack up everything and just disappear and live this life where I can just be somewhere and be in the nature, have my dogs, and like, but it feels so exhilarating and overwhelming, even though the outcome feels so like something that I really want. And 59 is a very, very, very brave, um, and I don't know, I don't even know how to describe that, because when you're young you still feel like okay, you can still make it, versus how we're taught in a society like 59, you have to be safe, you want to make sure that you're not, your health, you have people around you and all of those things. Didn't you have any of those fears at that point, or what were your fears?
My fear was that I would die feeling like I hadn't lived up to, I describe it as one of my sisters used to criticize me a lot for this, that I wasn't living this, I wasn't taking care of my age. I was being self-indulgent. There's a lot of things about it until one day, because she does a lot of meditation and has studied in India and all the rest. One day I told her, but this is my dharma. You're asking me to give that up. And she went, I understand. And she has never criticized me for it again. Anyway, my fear was more about what I would regret than what I would do. In my mid 50s, I read an article, and the article said, and there's some scientific study that said that the reason it feels like time speeds up as we get older is that we do fewer and fewer novel things. So this, when we do the same thing, it folds into all the all the birthdays of your past sort of collapse. You have another, when you celebrate your birthday, you can feel them echoing in the past, like in the mirror, but they basically collapse into one experience. So novelty, but it's hard to have novel experience. So I went out seeking novel experience. I would go places I'd never been. I started traveling again. I hadn't been traveling for over 10 years.
But were you as courageous as this before you decided this?
I was, oh yeah, I speak several languages. I've traveled. I'm in an energetic I have a lot of creativity. So that's the, all the while, but the world hasn't been, but I've also had to be this teacher person in society to have a roof over my head. So at 55, I started doing this more and more, traveling because I wanted to. I just, didn't worry about. And slowly I sort of opened up so that at 60, when a lot of things came falling down, I was done. LA was like it's hard to live in, particularly if you're not young. And so I just left. I packed up everything in a 10 by 10 storage unit because cleared out my apartment. um, House sat for one of my sisters because she was going out of town. And so at the beginning of 2015, New Year's Eve 2015, I took off for a year. And I wanted to, 1 year. I didn't think I could afford more than a year. And I didn't know if I'd like it, and all these things. So I found a residency in New Zealand, which was as far from Los Angeles as you can get. and, I'd never been before. I didn't know what to expect. And I just flew out on New Year's Eve.
Nobody you knew, you had no expectation, no idea. You just wandered there just like that.
Yeah, I almost died the second day I was there, but in the very one of the safest. That's another story. I I discovered something.
Oh my God. I also want to ask you this. Before, I'll keep asking you now since you've given me the permission, so let the viewers and listeners be okay with that. Um, you say you thought you had, a lot of us have this fear, like, when we are young, like, mm, we have to make money, or I'll burn my money, what will I do next? Did you have that, like, what if it didn't work out, what if, where would you get a job, and working, traveling and then working, like all of those ridiculous amount of thoughts that we get?
I was saying, what am I going to do when I'm old and don't have energy? Hi, doing fine. But because for my whole life I practiced not having money, making it work out. All right. I do without a lot. People see me on the internet, and a lot of times they say, "Well, you can do these things because you're privileged," and they're right in a way. I am privileged. I mean, I'm the kind of person that people will. let house sit for 3 months in a beautiful place in an expensive neighborhood. That's privilege. It's because I look, my education, okay. But I have earned most of my life at or around the poverty level because you either have time or money. And the rest, so I've out a lot of things. I enjoy the fact that I drive a trash can on wheels. It's an old car, beat up with an engine that works because I'd rather have the freedom than what I'd have to do to have the money to pay $300 to $500 a month in a car payment. I don't want to be tied to that. And I've missed a few opportunities to make money in real estate invest because I didn't want that burden so that I could be free to do what I wanted, whatever I did. Now, a lot of my youth, though, I was free and I was thinking and being creative, if you can imagine, just being creative, but not creating a lot. I did write, I did paint, I did work all my whole life. I didn't have much success. I mean, everything I wrote in LA, all the screenplays just sat on the maybe shelf. They'd be optioned. I'd win a screenplay award, but nothing would happen. Things wouldn't work out for me in my films. They got into a couple festivals, but not distribution. It just was maybe. And that was my life. I was being created. I was producing work, not as much as I could, not full time because I was doing. And so this is why I took off to find out what I wanted to do and be with the rest of my life because I was approaching 60. It's like I got like one or two more episodes, chapters, and that's it. But my life of cobbling together and not having a lot of money and making it work has really stood me in good stead these last couple of years. There's things I want. Don't do them. Don't get them. I was going to get a new car this year, newer car this year. Nope, still got the same old trash can on wheels. I got a very old.
Trash can. Do you wish that you would have done this earlier?
I don't, I can't know that. Because what I did at the time I did it, I took off for New Zealand and I said, I have to do something, or this year, because of my experience, will just disappear in memory. So I decided to do a, a chance. A friend gave me these things, I can show it to you, said, can you do anything with this? And these are credit card blanks. I said, sure, I can make. I never did a journal book. Actually, my first journal book in my life I did in January because it was one of my resolutions. Full art journal. So I said, I'll paint on them. And he said, well, what, Sharpie? Because Sharpies are anyway, I started doing art on Sharpies. And you can see that I did this every day in New Zealand. And I discovered the secret of staying on.
And okay, before this, I'll ask you a few more New Zealand questions. While you were doing this, what were you also doing in New Zealand? Did you have like an agenda that, oh, you'll paint all days, you'll write all days, or it was just this? That's it.
I had a lot of those, but the only job I had was to do one card a day. One, that's it. I did one of these a day and I took something from my experience and I recorded. There were days I did write. I mean, I have a memoir that goes with the art, but it's very hard to get a book published that is both art and text because of the cost of color printing. I guess it could be an ebook, but I haven't found anybody interested in doing it. So I have a memoir of this year. So I did write, but I focused on doing. But some days, I just wandered around, did experiments. A lot of that stuff has vanished but I have 365 cards from that year, and each one of them reminds me and brings the moment into focus. So I didn't lose it, and I learned. That was the year my imposter complex popped. The bubble popped, and it hasn't come back. Doing one, that's part one of what I try to teach people is the secret of getting rid of the imposter complex. You have to have a task that's small enough that you can do it every day, no matter what. And I was really sick in Mexico. I mean, throwing up in the bathroom. So what did I do that day? I did a card of a toilet because I couldn't leave the bathroom. But I did it no matter what. I did it, and it was that discipline that is the first half of my secret to now that makes me live the artist life fully. That Pick something that you can do. Every year I change it. Some years I change it, doesn't work, so I pick the Lunar New Year and I change it, right? One year I wrote 1,000 words a day. Another year I did the deer, the dog, because I did these. Um, I did a dog a day. Another year I said, last year I said, I'm going to do a reel every day. I didn't know how to do them. I was putting on a lot of makeup. I was working on the lights. I was doing all this stuff. You know what happened? I was hating it after a month. So I said, okay, do I change things or do I change how I do it? So I didn't. I stopped putting on makeup. I mean, I have a little bit of lipstick on because we're doing a podcast, but mostly I get an idea. I turn on the camera. I pick up my camera, turn it on, and record the thing that I'm thinking about artistically, creatively that day. That's it. Me as I am.
Amazing. I saw one of your videos on Instagram where you had like a total blackout and you were saying, like, this is me. It's completely black. There is no light. And you recorded it.
Why? Because I just got this idea. Yeah. Do you know that one's gotten on Instagram? Where's my phone? I don't know what I did with it. It's gotten a huge out on TikTok. I did cross post. Excuse me. So I got save tick so I could cross post on both platforms. Just save it off of one and do it on the other one. But yeah, the blackout one, it was dictating my phone in the dark. I mean, on Instagram, it's gotten, oh, I can't see how many it's gotten. Anyway, uh, it's got a couple. I've on the three platforms. It's had a few thousand views for something that was just me thinking, and that's what I do. If I think of something that occurs to me, like the fact that I had done my daily writing, that's one of my. I now have two, but I've made them smaller tasks a day. I tried doing two before, 1,000 words plus something else. It was too much. There's a so I reduced the number of words. So I did it just before I went to bed, and I couldn't get to sleep. So I took it out and say, okay, here's the problem about writing just before bed. You get a bunch of ideas. Anyway, so it was just true. It's what I had learned about creativity and daily practice that day. And I just talk about what's in the other day. I have like 150, 40,000 views on something when I burned the soup because I got involved in a painting.
What's interesting is, I think that you've also figured a way of, like you said, removing your imposter, because putting our thoughts in real time, not having specifically living in this very superficial facade based world where, like you said, sometimes you feel like, oh, you need to have the perfect lighting, a good camera, or you have to say the right things, or even to be an artist. I think painting more than just a card, oh, that's not art enough, that's not being an artist enough. Like, there's so many limiting thoughts. What brings you apart from that? What brings you, pulls you?
Yes. And the thing is that what you're doing with that, if you're failing to do enough, if you're failing to do enough that you feel you're the artist alive in you, then you need to first establish a relationship with that creative self. I have a friend, uh, she's from Kerala in India. Anyway, she's here now. She has this memoir she wants to write. And for 3 years, 3 years ago, we went to a writing conference. She was all fired up about it. People were interested in her topic, but she said, it's been 3 years and I haven't written anything. And I sat down and I said, okay, where's your computer? Get your word processing program out right now. Write me 250 words. Go. It's 2 paragraphs. Go. And she said, what, right now? I said, yes. She said, I don't know. I said, we'll start it. I showed her how to save it on her desktop. Go. And I just sat there and played Candy Crush while she did it. She did it in fairly short time. I said, okay, that's your task for the day, 250 words. She said, well, I 250 words a day. You'll have the book by in 12 months. And now you know it. And if you do it it's more important that you do it every day than that you finish any time sooner, because you don't have any words for 3 years it's taken you to get. So she's been doing it now. I nagged her a little bit for a while. She said, and so she She's only doing 250 words. But I told her the other half of the secret of overcoming the imposter complex. With the cards, I wasn't tempted to go on. Artists would say, "Oh, you could do two or three and make sell them for whatever and make But I only did one, and I wasn't tempted to go further. I'm not identified with being an artist the way I am with a writer, but writers particularly, but artists too. When they get on a roll, they keep going. When I did 1,000 words, at 1,000 words, maybe 1,050 max, I stopped. I wasn't allowed to go to 1,200, even if I was in the middle of a scene. It did two things. It made me kind of bring the scene to a close by 1,000. So I had these nice beats in my story, and it moves quickly. But also, even when it didn't, the next day it was like saying, "No, you can't have any ice cream." I want ice cream. So you can have it tomorrow. It's like, can I go to bed now? you know, it became a treat to sit down and write. And I did it every morning because I was excited because I stopped. So the counterintuitive thing, if you see that reel of mine, is that the secret to daily practice isn't starting, it's stopping. And stopping at the place that's what I call the sweet spot before you're done. When you've hit the mark.
Yeah, you have that. You still feel unfinished and you feel excited to come back. I saw this suggestion from someone, and this has worked for me. I'm a very messy person, extremely messy. And I never like to clean up my studio in the sense that even though I like to have a clean studio, but I've always had this habit where, specifically when I used to have like a home studio, I figured that I would leave things, and it was so much easier for me to just step in and resume because I would leave it at a point I knew where to start off with. But ever since that I have, moved into a new studio and a different space, having a clean studio, I think the negative I feel of this is that, let's say I have a busy day, I'm having a lot of calls and something, and I'm just waiting for me to start is a fresh new page, spill everything and to have things ready. It's not like I can jump right into it. It's like I have to again set the layer, make something. And so I read this somewhere where if you really want to, like specifically for visual artists, um, to not finish their work, whatever they're doing, completely the day they wind up, to leave a little bit they know that they can easily and resume next day.
I think what they're trying to do is keep you interested. But my suggestion is you just say what you're going to do and find your sweet spot and then stop. In other words, instead of saying leave it unfinished, you're saying, it might be you have a timer. It might be that you have whatever you're going to do, but it doesn't have to be your main thing. You can say, okay, every day I'm going to, like I'm going to do something in my journal, art journal, and you do that. Then if you do or don't do on your other art, you've still developed and enriched the relationship with the part of you that creates. Um, the the you can't trick your creativity. It's trickier than you are. You can't trick it. You have to honor it. So hold on a second. I have to use the tissue. Hold on. I'm going to go out of frame. This is what I found out anyway about this finding the spot before you've tapped into your reserves. You're using your energy of the day,
But how do you tap into your, sorry, go on.
and you don't tap in your reserves and you stop. You can do something else, like I did a card. Well, you just decide something and then check. You can't know that. Everybody's different. So I started this year saying I was going to write 1,000 words a day, and I was dreading starting it. I thought, okay, that's because I'm going to do an art journal a month. And I did January, and I'm kind of getting along in February. And so, but I've also been painting. I mean, I've been very prolific this winter. I have this whole series of paintings that I'm putting up on Saatchi Art right now. Um, but there's always more on the list than what I do, even for me. But I don't feel an imposter about not getting it done. It just goes to the next day because now I know anything I add to my pile for the day, what am I going to throw away? So when I say, oh, I should do this thing, I said, okay, what am I going to not do that I'm already doing? And so now it's good. But anyway, what I was saying was, at about 2 weeks, I wasn't really into the writing, and I thought, "I love this world," and I'm writing a second book. So I reduced the word count, and it was better, and then I reduced it again. So I have to write 500 words a day, and I'm supposed to stop before I hit 1,000. That's my sweet spot. And so now at 500 words, I stop, and I'm, like, really excited to get back to it. So you have to experiment. It's not like you decide something with the and whip the back of your creative part to do it. You decide something with your front of the brain. Is it working? Is it my friend who's doing the 250 words? She may up it to 3, 4, 500 words if she finds that she's feeling the urge to write, but it's not enough for her. That's fine. Up it to 500. If she doesn't do it every day, reduce it back to 250. You have to find it. A year is a pretty long time. You can play with it for a couple of months and still the thing to do is yeah, I can only tell you what I do and have done. When I was oh, I'm sorry, I'm over here. When when I was really, there have been phases where I've had a job and I've been creative and I've been really burnt out. So the first thing I did is, okay, what am I doing in my job that I don't have to do? What am I putting into the job that it doesn't require? It's not my family. They pay me to do work. I have to deliver good quality work, but I don't have to put my heart and soul in it. Um, the paradox is like when I was teaching, I was like really intensely into teaching English to these international students. And I just pushed myself. And one day I said, no, I'm not taking any work home. If I can't grade it in school, it's not getting graded. And I found ways to read all the papers and then teach a class about what mistakes they made and have them. I became a better teacher because I stopped doing a lot of the things that I thought I had to do to be a good teacher because I thought, well, I have to satisfy they're better off having me as a teacher than having no teacher or a teacher doesn't understand the subject. But I'm only going to do what I can do and I'm not taking a bit of work home. It's not happening. And I just didn't. They didn't pay me to take work home. It was hourly. I just took it. I didn't do it. And so that freed up time. And then the other thing is that, so that's one thing, is to look at all of your obligations that you have to do. And if you've got to work double jobs because you have a lot of things to pay for, there you go. That's one of the things. I mean, you don't have to go without, but then you have to say, oh, my life, I love my life because I don't have to go without. Not, I'm an artist who's failing her life. Now, it is true that if you're creative and don't have a creative outlet, you become depressed and neurosis comes from a lot of that. So, but the thing I'm saying is that a small thing, a card painted, do a, start now and make a Christmas card every day. If you celebrate Christmas or whatever, and just make one every day for the next year. And by the end of the year, the rest of this year, you'll have a stack that you can send to people. Or get an eye, do something every day. And it can be something small, so small that if you're exhausted, you're lying in your bed and you say, oh, I forgot to do that. You can turn on the light and do it because you have to have what it's called is, there's a phrase for this. Some business guy did it. It's called radical inflexibility. You need to pick one thing from your creative life that you have radically inflexible on. And for me, I learned radical inflexibility because remember I told the story of the dishes in one of my things? That my first bit of radical inflexibility is I'm not going to bed till the dishes are done and put away because I hate waking up to a dirty sink. Now, why does that got to do with creativity? Well, emotion is part of creativity. So the self-care about that taught me the value of it because I now just, it's easy for me to not to do the dishes. I mean, there's no dirty dishes at the end of the day, period. Nothing in the sink. That's what I applied to making the cards. Again, radical inflexibility. Sick as a dog in Mexico. I did it anyway. And the part of me that creates just bloomed, and I don't have any imposter complex anymore. There's times when I'm not doing very much, but I'm doing my one thing a day. I'm down in the dumps, but I'm saying, but you're doing this. Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about also now, since I also want you, because we were already on, about you packing up your bags and then you've been traveling, having this very colorful experience of living a vagabond life. Can you take us through what this life has taught you all these years, and also contrast as a creative? How has this experience of pushing yourself and like really now going after, how has that impacted you?
Well, one of the things was I had a huge shift in my relationship with myself because I was alone a lot of the time and I kept losing things. And there was nobody to like share my frustrations with, just me. And I slowly sort of lost. First thing that fell away was the noise of what other people who love me or know me, have known me a long time, think about me because they weren't around. I was half a world away, or I was not half a world away, but then I was in Mexico, or I was in Canada, I was all over the place. But that in New Zealand, I was there for 4 months. And that's the first thing that fell away. I was at this residency, artist residency place in the middle of the countryside. So I walked every day in nature. Um, I paint a card, and then I just was there with other artists, and they didn't know me, and they kept changing because I was there for a long time. But they would sometimes them came for a week, and so my interaction with the world was very passing, other the reflection, and so I got a sense of who I was in myself. Not all of it's great, frankly, but all of it's goes with me. I can't leave it. I'm here. This is who I am. This is me. Oops. That's where I came up with the phrase. I mean, anyway, so I had a lot of revelations there about the nature of myself. And I realized that, like my life in California, I was meditating one day, writing about one of my pictures, artworks about the California thistle, which grows and is really a problem because it's so prickly and it fills the fields. And I thought I was living in California in a field of California thistles and didn't even realize that I was bleeding all over in small cuts, trying to be an artist. And so this allowed me to heal my relationship to myself and my artist doing these cards. And then I started traveling. And I decided when it became winter in New Zealand, I headed back to the United States where it was summer. And I decided on having a second summer and I traveled. Okay. I do all these things to get, like I wrote for this online magazine that's now pretty much defunct. It's not defunct, but it's not as prominent as it used to be. So I would get free things, travel and hotel rooms. So I got free travel from Amtrak to travel around the United States in sleepers. So I used So I used that to go visit all the places I've ever lived. And I would go to the Oh, yeah. And I went to these places, and every place I went, I thought, "There is no trace of me here. No trace of me." Huh. And in a few places, it was a surprise, but in every place, 2 things happened. I liked the place more. The actual city, for example, Madison, Wisconsin, Seattle. I wasn't identified with living there and what came to me and what didn't come. So the places were lovely. And then I continued it as I went east to the East Coast um, and then to Europe. But in the East Coast, on my birthday, I went down to uh, where I went to college, William and Mary. There was nobody on campus. It was some sort of holiday, or it was a weekend day. It was empty. And I walked into the theater building, which was always open. And there on the stage was the ghost light. You leave a light on the theater so people don't fall off the edge of the stage. And I just remembered how miserable I was there because I was not acknowledged as the creative soul that I thought myself to be when I went there. Other people were. They're now famous. So maybe they were right. Maybe they weren't. Maybe if they'd acknowledged me, I'd be. We don't know any of those things. But all the pain of that time was unreal now. And I thought, huh, I went to Madison, Wisconsin, where I'd also had a terrible, bad breakup where I was teaching no, Whitewater, Wisconsin, where I was teaching. And I was going to drive there from Madison, where I'd gone to graduate school. So I was in, and I couldn't find the place. I kept getting lost. I went to the wrong city. Finally, I said, "Oh, my unconscious is making me avoid this source of my horror." And then when I got there, I couldn't find the pain. When I remembered what happened to me, I could feel the pain. But when I went there, there was no trace of any of that. And that was another freeing thing. And then I went to Europe where I've lived and I was very happy, but also my happy times were gone. It was gone. I went to see Herculaneum and Pompeii, and I just suddenly realized that all of us die and we die alone. And I was happy as could be about that because I could be joyful in the moment. It's the, it's the, the kind of holding on that makes I spent New Year's Eve 2020 to 21 2015 to 2016, where going into 2015, I was on a plane to New Zealand, standing on the Pont Alexandre in France. People were celebrating all around me. I was felt safe. I felt here, right here. Oh, I'm going to cry. I'm tearing up. I was there in the world, people around me who were happy, and I'd spent a year on the road. It was a beautiful moment, and I was alone, and I was completely embedded in the world. I was in the world in a way that I had never been. In some ways, because I was alone. I had some ecstatic experiences that year because there was no one to share it with. It was just me and the hills, me and the people. It was the best New Year's Eve of my life, and I was alone, aware of being alone. I can't, I mean, maybe that doesn't make any sense to anybody, but people are afraid of this traveling. Yeah, yeah, no. Alone is okay. People is okay too, but
So, what is your pattern of traveling? How do you travel? How do you pick your destinations? How you decide what is your travel? How do you pick your destinations? How do you feel like, okay, this is where next you're going?
I have no idea. Oh, sometimes, like most people say, "Oh, we're gonna be doing this. Would you house sit for us?" Or fine. Like here, I once I was gonna come back here to the States in November. I didn't know if I would stay here. I would go to visit a friend in Mexico, and then I got the offer from someone saying, "Oh, we were told you do house sitting. Would you like to house it?" So that stuck me here for 3 months in Chevy Chase. Um, but I basically, I mean, I had a ticket. Wrote a round trip ticket, so I'm going back to Europe. But I'm going to change the date. I paid for the ticket. You can change the date because who knows what's going to happen in 6 months. And so I, people would ask me sometimes, "What do you mean you don't know where you're going to be in a month?" Or like I wrote residency in Mexico, and so July they had a date. So I was going to go to Mexico, in a part of Mexico that's high altitude, so it isn't that hot. It's temperate all year long in July. I said, okay, what am I going to do between now and July? Oh, maybe I'll visit my friend Heather. Maybe I'll do. I mean, it was just I figured it out as I went. When I didn't know what else to do, I went to Airbnb because Airbnbs are expensive, but if you rent for more than 28 days, you get a substantial discount. And I found a couple places where the first rental at an Airbnb has a 30% discount. And then the month-long thing has another discount. So I got really great, a couple of them were kind of, I didn't really like the place I stayed in Avignon. So I stayed there a month and I left. Yeah, okay. I had a lot of good bread. I was editing this memoir that I wrote about my year of travel, which I don't know if it's ever gonna be published, but I had to edit it to.
What are the creative projects that you're working on now?
So right now I'm working on a sequel to the book Knife Witch that just came out last year. Now, the cover makes it look scary, but it's actually a comic fantasy. It's like Terry Pratchett writing. It's been compared to books by Terry Pratchett. That if Terry Pratchett, a couple of them said if Terry Pratchett was a female, this is what he would have written. I'm a female, okay. But anyway, I have a kind of antic sense of humor. I was a clown in the circus for a while, but that's another story. Um, and so I love this world, and I just even though the sales have been very low, they could pick up. The thing about the internet is if it catches on, suddenly a lot of them will sell. I tried doing all the things that you're supposed to do about book talk and didn't work. None of it worked for me. But even having a lot of followers, I mean, I have like total of like between 40, about 45,000 followers across platforms, but it doesn't translate in sales because I don't know how to, they're more interested in my writing about creativity. So I'm working on the sequel to that. I'm finishing up putting things onto Saatchi Art the latest series that I painted. And I'm organizing a retreat. I was in Italy this summer, looking at this Airbnb in Tuscany, and I thought, it's an Airbnb with only 5 rooms. Has its own little kitchen. They serve breakfast, but you can cook meals. I said, let's make a 5-person artist retreat. And I started seeing if people who were following me on Instagram and TikTok wanted to come. And so they were interested. There were all this response. And so I talked to the owners and we worked out a price for per week, 7 days, 6 nights to stay there because they need a night to change all the linens. And it's like, I don't know, it's like $780 a week, which for a residency in Tuscany is pretty good. And then, so that's what so I'm doing creative work. I'm trying to also do something to support and connect with my Instagram, Twitter people, because what I talk about there is it's about how to live this creative life, how to recognize that the way that the social order presents to you is through the lens of the categorical mind and through a world that is very business oriented and not spirit and creativity oriented. And so I challenge those. I mean, that's how you found me, right? What do you think is the topic of my reels?
I think what brought me to you is not the topic. What brought me to you was your energy, how you speak, how candid, and how real it is. I think that was my first, and I think you speak about so many different things. And when I found you, we've been coordinating for months now, but since you were traveling, and I found you pretty much earlier to that. And I feel like for me, it is I like to hear from different perspectives, different topics. But for me, what really attracts me is how real, or the way someone's speaking, or how how I can resonate with it as a person. And I feel like I always really enjoyed how close up you spoke and how real it felt. Or even like in the dark. I love that carefree and no inhibitions energy of you. So anything that you said had that kind of resonation with me, or like something I felt like, okay, I could connect to.
Mm, that's great. That's what I'm hoping for. But I actually don't know. Like the one that I just did about burning the food, just people are like, I didn't expect it. I mean, another one that I was surprised at is I have
Yeah. That's your comic and real now coming together.
yeah, well, I love I find humor is my way of opening up my creativity. When I'm deadly serious, my writing is deadly dull. When I'm deadly serious, my painting is sort of it looks like somebody from high school did it. It's got a an awkwardness that is for a lack of it isn't so much lack of perspective, but it's lack of depth and reach. It doesn't have elan, it doesn't have liveliness. So I use humor. And one of the reasons I got a dog, I travel with a service dog. But one of the reasons I got the dog was the one thing that was missing in my solo life was laughter. I can't make myself laugh. So you can't tickle yourself. But the dog, where's the dog makes me laugh.
Yeah, I can resonate with that. I have my dogs, and I think I truly completely feel that I love the person I am when I'm with them. I mean, the way I talk to them, the way I smile, I don't think I smile as much as I'm with them, and I talk as much as I'm with them.
She's a service dog. She's trained to alert me to take my medicine. And so when I'm having a little crisis, before I have it, because you have to take medicine early, you can't take, if you don't take it, it doesn't work. Anyway, this is my dog. Yeah, and I just decided I had to have a dog. It's one thing that after 5 years on the road, I said, "Oh, something this is the big thing that's missing. It isn't somebody else. It's something that it's the but it's the fact of some other being that can bring out the laughter." And animals really do make you laugh. I mean, I love them. I have something I love.
I think they also I think sometimes they bring I don't know how to say this. They bring the real out from you, in you, through you, whatever. Because I feel like when we meet people, there's so many barriers in the sense of, okay, how people are going to see me, judge me, oh, should I be saying this? Am I too much? Am I too less? But with animals, you are just like they love you, accept you. You can just be yourself. I spend my mornings with my dogs after having yoga. I think that's the best time of my life, like best time of my day. I When I'm traveling, I'm away, I miss that the most. One, that, and I sleep with my dog, and if she's not around, if she's not sleeping with me, I just feel like I'm missing out something that I really like. It's like it's so precious to me.
Someone in my family never understood dogs and didn't like them and just got a dog. And this is a person who I don't think of as someone who apologizes a great deal and has been apologizing to everybody who has dogs. When I would visit, I couldn't bring I had to stay in a hotel because I've always had dogs. This one is just one. I didn't have one while I traveled. My dog had died, one of the triggers to take off. I figured I could go because I didn't have a dog. And so I said, "Ugh, I was so wrong," and apologized to everyone who had dogs, saying, "I just didn't understand. I really didn't understand." And so now she's a devotee, a dog devotee as well. But people who have near death experiences and come back with a message, not everybody is told that life has a purpose, but the ones who bring back a message of what we're supposed to do in life all say the same thing. We're supposed to love one another. That's it. Not, you know, anything else. And dolls live that purpose. They understand, cruel or kind, they love you. Um, it doesn't matter what you do. Those who are belong to them, they love them. Now, it's not it's an interesting they teach us in a way. They model for us. They don't teach us, but it's not active, but they model for us unconditional love. And that loving of even people who are not their immediate family of they meet a dog and they either love them or hate them, but they go out and they connect. Dogs are about connection and just giving that feeling, carrying that feeling of loving. And yeah, so I'm a dog person. And so that's the one thing that was missing in travels. So where are we? So we did the thing about all my travel. Yeah, and my dog.
I am so happy to hear that. Yeah. We are 50 minutes into the episode. That's it feels like the time has gone too fast. Yeah.
That's gone. Gone. Did you have something in particular you want to know?
I have lots but this is I think we let's try to wind this episode and let's do another episode where we'll talk about more.
Okay. All right. That's good. Yeah, so I would say, um, to anybody. Here's my big takeaway is, um, give yourself a very small present every day. It doesn't have to be creative if you're an artist, um, but do it with radical inflexibility. Do not let yourself, it has to be small enough because that will teach you how good it feels. So if you're feeling lost in any way in your life, pick one small thing. I mean, you could decide that every day you're going to I don't know, rearrange your, fix your paint, make sure all your, at the end of your art, you're going to do whatever you do. You're going to get your brushes and make them all perfectly and exactly, or use, because you say you don't really like the chaos. And sometimes I heard you say it, sometimes I feel like what you were saying sometimes gets in the way of you starting again. You mean I like chaos, but there's a level of chaos that I like.
I like yours. In fact, for me, it is starting from a fresh page is so much more. For me, when I do something, I spill everything over. And my mom used to say, how do I even work? And I would spill everything and then I'll play and then throw and this and that. Unless it just my mind. I'm not a control, like I'm not a clean freak or something. I want to get as messy as I can. And that makes me feel so grounded and so in the moment that I'm not holding myself back because I want to clean a brush or I want to clean or something.
All right, pick, but what would make everything easy? Whatever it is, pick something small and do that every day. Maybe it isn't about creativity. Maybe it's something in the other part of your life. It could be something, I don't know, but it has to be something that you would do no matter what. Uh, you know, and then, but make sure it's small enough. The other thing is that people don't realize how powerful small regular action is, and that also teaches you that. When I'm stuck, I look at I say, oh, it's too big. The pieces are too big. Why don't I want to work on this? The pieces are too big. I have to do a smaller piece. And that's it. I just take smaller bites. Um, and, you know, when you asked earlier, do I wish I'd done it sooner? No, because for instance, I do just pick up my phone and talk to it. Well, filmmaker for a while. I think, oh, if I do light from this side and have shadow, the picture's more interesting. Oh, this, eyes open. I know some things about framing, about light and shadow, about spacing the light, putting it on the side that comes from the filmmaking time. For my writing, you know, and I can edit the videos so that when I go in, I understand the value of taking out that pause or leaving in that pause. So that you can just cut it up, tighten it, I don't make it faster, I make it tighter, but not always. So years I spent working on filmmaking pay off in my TikTok videos. They don't, I don't make them artificial by doing all the exterior stuff, but I use them to enhance what I'm doing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I truly believe that nothing ever that we do goes waste. It only helps us think better, a bigger perspective, or at some point, you will know why exactly were you there and why did you do it. And I think like there's nothing that goes to waste.
Don't I would say I would give a caveat to people of don't do things you dislike actively. Don't put a lot of energy in those just because you think you can use it someday. That clutters your life. Keep your sense of joy and adventure. Do new things. Because the biggest killer, I think that everybody who leaves a note on my feed that is saying, like somebody said something recently, okay, boomer, like blah blah, that's called dementia or something. And all I could think of when I read that, well, I can. And what they're doing is they're stabbing their own creative spirit. As openness is creativity, is open. And every time you engage in cynical interaction on the web, it makes you more cynical because your own creative spirit has taken a hit and you don't even know why. But you've been the one hitting it. You're like punching yourself. People, and so all the negative comments on the web, I feel like all those people are just destroying their own lives, their own psychological equilibrium, their own fount of joy. Don't put negative comments on the internet because you're hurting yourself. It doesn't really hurt that person. Yes, I mean, if a whole bunch of people troll them, somebody could really have a bad experience. But each one of those people has, has cut themselves in their heart, in their spirit. It's bad. It's bad, bad, bad. You feel like you're so smart at the moment, typing something where I've gotten it wrong. I mean, I post quotes by people who are very problematic. I posted something, I've resisted because I just don't want the onslaught. But I have a lot of respect for some of the things Jordan Peterson says about creativity. And I have a lot of eye rolls at a lot of the things he says about women's spirituality and I mean, they're just cuckoo nuts. It doesn't mean that the good stuff is bad. I did something by Oprah. Half like a lot of the comments were, "How can you quote Oprah Winfrey? She's a terrible human being." The quote is useful to me, and spending time with the part that doesn't work reinforces the part in yourself that cannot grab the juice from life and take nutrients from it. And I just think that's a shame. So I try to focus on the other thing. I try if I sense the person anyway. So that's really, keep your this world. It might be a rainy day. You might not have any money for all the food and the treats. But you only get one day no matter what. So enjoy your day in Disneyland as best you can because there's a lot of cool stuff there and crazy stuff and stupid stuff. Take as much experience as you can from it. Get on the rides you can get on. See the people. Make the experience whatever it is because it's your only day. You won't get another one. Enjoy it. Find things you enjoy every day. I mean, people talk about gratitude, but yeah, gratitude's good. I mean, I'm grateful for a lot of things, but I wouldn't use the word gratitude. I would use the word what?
Thank you so much, Susan. This was wonderful. And yes, you've shared a lot of wisdom, not just one. You're a storyteller.
I wish I could have ended with wisdom for you. Well, thank you for saying that. Yeah. Tell a better story. You're unhappy? Tell a better story because that's all it is. Right? I'd love as much. And we'll talk again.
That's very encouraging and exciting. Yes. Thank you so much. And we'll bring you back and have you soon again.
Sure. Well, on Instagram, you can see my name here, Susan diRende. It's one word on Instagram. They can find me there. They can find me at myname.com, and that has a choice to go to my artist or my writer website.
Perfect. I will make sure that we add everything in the show notes article and on our website and redirect people to your logins, social logins as well. Thank you so much for coming and for your time. And I will see you soon again.
Yeah, talking. It's been fun. It's been fun. See you next time.
I'll stop.